Hey, I'm Joe with RevZilla, and welcome to our series on how to remove wheels from different types of motorcycles. Today, we're talking dirt bikes. So there's a few reasons you might want to pull the wheels off your bike. You could need to change your brake rotors, your wheel bearings, your rear sprocket, but most commonly it's going to be to replace your tires. Most motorcycle shops are going to charge you less if you just bring them the wheels to have tires mounted and balanced versus the entire bike. Also, cycle gear stores offer tire mounting and balancing at a discounted rate if you had bought the tires at RevZilla, Cycle Gear, or any of their partner stores, but they don't have any ways to pull wheels off bikes, so you're going to need to bring them just the wheels yourself. So before you get started, you're going to need some tools. Generally, it's going to be some large diameter sockets, some Allen wrenches, some grease and some rags. And some metric bikes do require an axle tool like this one. This one's from Motion Pro, but there's a few different brands available. It has 4 different sizes on it that are pretty common on the front of metric motorcycles. My KTM doesn't need one, but these generally will fit a variety of different types of motorcycles. So you might find some on your street bike or your adventure bike. So one tool may be able to do the job on a few of your own bikes. So just remember that this is just a general guide. Always refer to your service manual for the instructions specific to your make and model. So before we start tearing the axles out of this bike, we're going to need a way to lift it up. So first, you're going to need to find a safe, level place to work on your bike. And then next, generally, I like to loosen the axle nuts while the bike is still on the ground because it's a lot more stable to put the leverage into those wrenches while the bike is down on the ground versus when it's up on the stands. So typically with lifting dirt bikes is really a piece of cake. You're going to see 2 types of stands pretty commonly. The one on the right here is a regular static type stand. There's no moving parts there. So generally you'll position the bike between your body and the stand, and you'll lift the rear of the bike up with your hip and your thigh and just huck the bike over the stand, centering the weight over the middle of the stand. Then it's up in the air, no big deal. So take it down, just reverse that process. That's usually easy if you have a motocross bike or an enduro bike that's relatively lightweight. But if you have a big dual sport bike, you might want to look into a lift type stand like this. A lift type stand has a pedal with a linkage on it, so once you push the pedal down, it raises up the platform up under the bike. So it lifts it up basically the same height as your static stand, but without having to lift the bike up yourself with your body. But now that we know about the 2 types of stands you're typically going to see for lifting dirt bikes, let's get into taking the axles out. So now that we loosened up the axles, it's time to pull them out. But a couple quick things before we do that. Most dirt bikes, you're going to have to loosen the axle pinch bolts up front before you could slide those out. And then with the rear, of course, you're going to be dealing with the drive chain. So what I like to do when I go to pull the axles out is just be very, very careful and mindful of all the parts. Some bikes, when you pull the axles out, the wheel spacers will go free, and you want to keep track of what spacer goes on which side of the wheel and which direction the axle goes in and all that. So what I like to do is when I pull the parts out of the bike, I lay them down on the shop rag on the floor in the order and the direction that they came out. Thankfully, my KTM has captive axle spacers, which keeps the spacers with the wheel once I pull the axle out. So it makes it really simple. And considering the fact that you might have the bike apart for a few days, you don't want to have your parts kicking around for that long. So what I like to do is take a picture of everything once it's on the floor, and that allows me to clean everything up and put it away until the wheels are back from the shop. But again, just remember that this is just a guide. You want to refer to the service manual or the owner's manual specific to your bike so you know exactly what to expect with your make and model. So now that we have our new parts, our tires installed on our wheels, it's time to put them back into the bike in the reverse order that we took them off. But a couple quick tips before we do that. I like to be sure that I clean and re-grease the axles before I put them back into the bike. If you don't re-grease the axles, there's a good chance that they could seize to the wheel spacers, making it impossible to get them out later on. Then go ahead and put the wheels back on your bike in the reverse order that you took them out. Now's a good time to double check your chain tension and set that to factory specs. Also, when you're tightening the axle nuts, tighten them by hand while the bike is up on the stand, and then torque them to factory spec when the bike's on the ground. You don't want to put a ton of leverage into an axle nut while the bike is up on stands. It's much more secure down on the ground. And last but not least, of course, it's always good to double check your brakes before you go out for a ride. There's a good chance that you could have pushed the pads into the calipers a little bit when you pulled the wheels off, so you might need to pump your lever and pedal a little bit to bring those back before you go out for a ride. So hopefully now you know how to pull the wheels off of your own dirt bike. And if you're interested in finding out how to pull wheels off of other types of motorcycles, check out our other videos where I cover adventure bikes, cruisers, and sport bikes. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to one of our gear geeks at 877-792-9455 or shoot an email over to cs@revzilla.com. Thanks for watching our video today. I'm Joe, and I'll see you next time.